Unless you've been living under a rock, you would not have missed a bit of news from the last couple of days about a record-breaking cancer trial where every single patient who was enrolled in the trial went into remission and their cancer disappeared completely. This is, of course, the first time in the history of cancer research and trials that every single volunteer or a participant in a trial, no matter how small, has gone into remission and stayed that way. So what actually happened in this trial? How was it designed? What was the drug that was used? What was the type of cancer that the patients had? How did they all respond to the drug? And are these astonishing results as much of a big deal as everyone is making them out to be? Let's have a look. This trial was designed to produce a 100% outcome. While the authors of the paper or the investigators of the study were not completely confident that it would, one of the objectives of this study was to try and quote-unquote cure every person. We still can't use the word cure technically because we still don't know the long-term status of these volunteers who now do not have any cancer. But how did the authors already know that the trial would have a favorable result? Because the objective of this trial was to identify the kind of people in whom such a drug would work best and then conduct a trial with them to ensure a reasonable degree of success and resulting in a reasonable degree of confidence that this treatment and therapy is immediately available and would work for patients of this kind. The drug that was used is an immunotherapy drug, which means that this drug enables the body's own immune system to fight against the cancer in the body. Immunotherapy holds a lot of promise for cancer research. We have seen in previous videos how immunotherapy works, its various kinds, and how effective it has been in trials. Let's look at immunotherapy as a therapy in general. If the body's immune system can be trained to fight cancer, why don't the immune system cells do so naturally in the first place? Cancer is, after all, harmful to our bodies and also kills healthy cells. So the immune system should technically detect cancer, cancerous tumors, and destroy them. That's the job of the immune system. But while our immune system can respond this way to viruses, it doesn't always work this way with cancer because cancer is essentially made up of our own DNA. Cancer originates not as an external pathogen but develops from and within our own cells. So the immune system does not attack it because the immune system does not attack our own body's cells indiscriminately. With immunotherapy, scientists attempt to train our immune system cells to recognize cancerous tumors and actually fight them the way they fight other pathogens in our bodies. Immunotherapy is very hopeful. It shows the potential to cure various types of cancers and other diseases, but it seems to work really well for a few cancer patients. Cancer is so deadly and has plagued us since before we even evolved to what we are today, and it has killed millions and millions of people through history. We can't find a root cause for different kinds of cancers, so we also cannot find a cure that helps us get rid of the disease entirely. So there is no cure and there are no treatments that are painless. And therefore, when we identify a certain group of people on whom a certain therapy works very effectively against cancer, it is also important to find out what makes the therapy work and what makes these people respond to the treatment, conduct trials, and then just start rolling out these treatments for those people who qualify for them. This is what the investigators of this study aimed to do. They wanted to identify the subset of people in whom this kind of immunotherapy works best, and they did that among patients with rectal cancer. For a subset of most trial participants, immunotherapy seems to work excellently, not so much with the others. And this seems to be the general case for cancer research. So, in whom does immunotherapy work so effectively? That's one of the things that the authors set out to confirm. The drug they used was called dostarlimab, a monoclonal antibody which has previously shown promise for some colorectal cancers and as of last year is an approved treatment for endometrial cancer. In a smaller group of women who had endometrial cancer, the drug worked remarkably effectively in trials. The same authors of this study also conducted another study 4 years ago with a different drug where another smaller group of cancer patients responded very well to an immunotherapy drug. And the patients who did respond had a genetic mutation. Dostarlimab also seemed to work really well with those having the same genetic mutation and with colorectal cancers. So the investigators enrolled those cancer patients with this specific genetic mutation into their study, and they also enrolled patients in early stages, stage 2 and stage 3 of localized rectal cancers that hadn't spread to other tissues. They wanted to see what would happen if the treatment was given early enough and whether they could stop the cancer from spreading to other tissues and cure the patients without need for other supplemental therapies. The genetic mutation that these patients have is one that disrupts the body's natural ability to fix damaged DNA. Since cancer cells form from our own cells, the mutation is also carried over into the cancer cells and can be identified within the tumors as well. This mutation is called the mismatch repair deficiency mutation or the MMR deficiency mutation. Cancerous tumors hide in our bodies by stimulating pathways or a series of molecular actions called immune checkpoints. These are a set of molecular actions that prevent the immune system cells from attacking the body's own cells. When these pathways form, cancer cells can hide behind them as immune cells do not attack them. And cancer cells also enable these pathways to form because, after all, they are cells of our own body. So tumors are very adept at hiding from our own immune system if they are cancerous. They masquerade as our own normal cells and are effectively invisible to our immune cells. If they are made visible, of course, the immune system would see that these are all tumors that are killing healthy cells and immediately attack and destroy them. But these cancers hide behind regular immune checkpoints that protect healthy cells. Drugs that are classified as checkpoint inhibitors, as the name suggests, prevent these pathways from forming. If these pathways don't form, the cells at the other side are not protected, and this enables the immune system cells to identify cancer cells and attack them directly. Dostarlimab is an inhibitor to the checkpoint called programmed death 1 blockade, PD-1. This anti-PD-1 drug was given every 3 weeks for 6 months to stage 2 and 3 rectal cancer patients with the specific MMR genetic mutation. The volunteers in the experimental therapy were expected to be followed up with chemotherapy and radiation therapy as required, as is the case with all experimental drugs and therapies. The drugs are given to see how well the patient responds to them, and of course it is only ethical that they get the regular approved treatment as well, because cancer is cancer. This study was a phase 2 study, which means in phase 1, in a handful of patients, safety was of course established, and now researchers are trying to determine its efficacy for this kind of cancer. So only a limited number of people had been enrolled. The findings are from a total of 14 patients for now. So the patients were given this drug for 6 months, and then after 6 months, they were expected to move on to chemotherapy or radiation as required. But to everyone's surprise, it turned out that every single patient in the trial went into remission. Remission is when the cancer no longer is expanding and growing in our body. It can also be shrinking. These patients discovered that not only had their cancer shrunk, it had actually shrunk to levels that were below detectable levels. There was no cancer to be seen in their body at all, so they did not require chemo or radiation or surgery or any other painful procedure. and the side effects that they had were minimal. The volunteers continued to remain in remission for at least 2 years, and they still are free of cancer. This is wonderful news in the field of cancer treatment. Rectal cancer patients also have very severe adverse effects to their quality of lives. Due to the location of cancer, patients can end up with bowel and bladder dysfunction, incontinence, altered sexual ability, infertility, loss of libido, mental and emotional distress, and many more permanent alterations to their quality of life. And each year, globally, there are over 700,000 new cases of rectal cancer. The findings from the study were based on a calculated guess and narrowing down of options in an informed manner, and was done successfully. Now it is kind of established that this kind of immunotherapy with this type of drug works very well in people with the MMR deficiency mutation. So the authors urge anyone diagnosed with colorectal cancers to get tested for the MMRD mutation and to enroll in checkpoint inhibitor immunotherapy trials if they are available. Their own trial is still continuing to recruit. The study and the trial are not done yet, but the findings from just 12 patients had been so impressive that the authors had to publish their paper midway, even though the trial is still ongoing. There are, of course, a lot of other kinds of cancers that also present with the same MMR mutation. So the authors are now enrolling patients with the mutation who have gastric, pancreatic, or prostate cancer. There are many forms of cancer that can be detected early and can be acted upon by advanced screening, especially as more and more genetic mutations are identified, which can help identify future cancer occurrences as well. In that regard, these findings have taken the oncology and medical community one step closer to identifying a type of cancer in a certain type of people that responds very well to a certain type of therapy, showing tremendous promise in bringing down the burden of this specific disease in the community immediately and effectively.